our first of a three-part series on executive functioning. And so for today and probably for the next two trainings, we're instead of saying executive functioning, I'll substitute it for EF. So you'll just know that sometimes I'm using the abbreviation. Um, so today we're going to talk about executive functioning, and we are going to talk about what it is, what areas are involved in executive functioning, and then some strategies that we can use for support. And what I'm hoping the outcome will be for you too is that you will think about your students or maybe friends, family members, your own children, who sometimes exhibit some of the things we're talking about. And a lot of times when we don't understand that these things can be brain-based, we feel like, especially in kids and students, that there may be don't care about their work, that they're being bossy or smart aleck or lazy, or all of the things we might think that the behavior is intentional. And so what I hope is that after we go through this, and especially the next two sessions as well, you'll start to kind of flip that switch and begin to think that these could be brain-based difficulties that are very prominent in some of our kids and students, that they can affect their success, but that there are supports and strategies we can use to help support them to gain those skills. So EF, or executive functioning skills, are sometimes referred to as the chief executive officer of the brain, right? It's the set of mental skills that help us do everything we do. So sometimes people think that because somebody maybe has a high IQ or whatever, that they should have skills that we maybe don't see. But what we know is that executive functioning is independent of your intelligence or how much we know. What it is just the ability to take what you know and to express it and translate it into action. So what we know is that executive functioning issues coexist with a number of disabilities, almost any disability you can think of. And a lot of times those executive functioning difficulties are what cause the most interference for kids' success rather than maybe the label that they have. So we see executive functioning difficulties coexisting with autism, ADHD, learning disabilities, traumatic brain injury, obsessive compulsive disorder, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, certain other health impairments, anxiety, depression, and then also stress and trauma. So the one thing about executive functioning is it kind of bridges us, because either you have difficulties with them now, or at some point in your life you likely will. If there's ever a period of stress and trauma in your life, you'll know what it feels like. So the areas that and you'll see different resources will tell you different numbers of areas, but for the purposes of our discussion today, we're going to look at these areas: working memory, flexible thinking, organization, self-monitoring, task initiation and completion, emotional regulation, self-control, and time management. And what you'll notice is that a lot of the strategies, these overlap so much that a lot of the strategies that I'll show you, and I will show you a few, will be things that would be helpful for several of the areas. So we're going to talk about working memory. So that's just trouble, difficulty following multi-step directions. That means you have to keep something in your head while you're doing it. You have instructions for completing a worksheet or instructions for any task. You have to keep those instructions in your head as you're actually performing what you've been asked to do. So you might see individuals that really are dependent on writing things down and having to refer to those written lists over and over to get things done. Maybe aren't so good at figuring things out in their head. And when you think about all the things that require multitasking, if you're a student, you have to listen while you're taking notes. So we're always multitasking, and it does create some difficulties when you have working memory struggles. So some of the things you can do is depict some of those things in a visual format because we know visuals stay in place and can be referenced over and over. It can be something as simple as a sticky note, like you see on the left, doesn't have to be pretty, where you write down maybe what the agenda is or what the steps are. It can be things like mnemonics or graphic organizers, again, that help organize what they're supposed to be keeping in their heads. And it can also be like chunking the information into individual pieces so they can tackle one piece at a time. So flexible thinking is another area of executive functioning, and that's just the ability to adapt when things change. It's your ability to go with the flow. It's your ability to have a contingency plan or a plan B, to be able to shift from what you thought was going to happen to what is actually going to happen. When there are issues with flexible thinking, you're going to see individuals who get very upset when rules or plans change. They have extreme difficulty when other people don't follow the rules. Um, Struggles trying to then focus on the new thing that's happening and being able to pull it together and then be successful with whatever that change was. Um, and these are also people that it's kind of my way or the highway, where they have a way that they think things should go and they think everyone should do it that way. So it does create some social problems. So some things you can do, again, we're looking at visuals. So something simple like a change alert. And what's important to help people with flexible thinking is to use priming, which is as soon as you know there's going to be a change, you give them a heads up so they have time to adjust to it. So these are just some simple visuals that you can use, just a change alert. Instead of this, we're going to do this. People with flexible thinking issues also have trouble, even when a transition is part of a routine. Flexible thinking requires you to stop thinking about whatever it was you're doing and then to shift to something else. So frequently, if it's a student, they'll have trouble with transitions because it's very, very hard. So timers and things like the one on the right that says you're almost finished, just ways to prime them so that they can prepare when there's a different activity or a new activity or transition. Um, when things change, it could be a real big deal for them. And these are just some visuals that help them to begin to kind of categorize what's bothering them. Is it really a big deal or is it a little deal? And helping them to recognize those things and have reactions that are in line with whatever it is that's happening. Organization is also a big area in executive functioning, and that's just your ability to have systems and to use systems as a way of keeping track of things, whether it's materials or information. Um, when individuals have trouble with that, those are those people that I always think of Peanuts cartoons and Pigpen, but sometimes they create a mess wherever they go. There's always clutter. They don't seem to put things where they belong and to keep things in order, losing things, losing track of time, being late for things, their work being kind of messy and disorganized. And frequently, if they're a student, not having what they were supposed to have at school and then not taking home what they were supposed to take home. So again, visually, using visuals to help them be able to keep track. This is just an example of a school backpack tag that was created that went to and from school. So actually it was on a laminated piece of cardstock and attached to the backpack so that the student could check off before they left school if they had everything they needed, and also could check off in the morning before they left if everything that they needed was in their backpack. The more we can create these kinds of supports, the more we're supporting independence and we're getting ourselves out of the job of having to nag and keep up with things. We're giving them a system and a way to organize for themselves. So here's just some other examples using color coding, using labels. And a lot of times once it's in an organized state, to help them, you can just simply take a photograph of it so that then when they go to put things back, they have that visual reminder of what it looks like when it's organized. And this is just another example. If you color code their subjects, then everything that goes with English, if English is red, everything that's in the red folders goes with English. It just gives them a way to organize that they can use forever. Not to forget all the digital ways that people can use to stay organized now, digital sticky notes, Google apps, you can set up reminders on phones. So helping them learn to use those things is also a great way to help them have a system for organizing. The next one is self-monitoring, and this one is it's sort of like being able to take stock of yourself to judge your own performance. It's kind of that how am I doing thing, which is also an executive functioning area. So this is your ability to kind of take stock, right? And to know when you're not quite doing it right, to know when you don't understand, to know when you need help, um, to know what you're good at, to know what your struggles are, so that you can make plans and be successful in accomplishing things. So, with these students, frequently what we'll see is they struggle in school or maybe with things at home and don't understand when they need to ask for help, and how they can do that. And this is just a couple of simple visuals that you can use to support them to do that. The one on the left is just a color scale that comes from a resource called the Incredible 5-Point Scale, where things are color and number coded, the degrees of something, so that it helps make abstract things more concrete. So this one is, if it's a green one, this is no sweat for me. This work is easy. I can do it by myself, all the way up to a red 5, which is this work is impossible for me. I'm really not ready and I need a break. So I've also done this with just colored folders of just red, yellow, and green, and having them begin to look at the work assignments they have and begin to categorize them as to how hard they are for them. If it's green, they're good to go. They don't need any help. Yellow, they might need a little help. And red is, I really don't get this. You're going to have to help me a great deal. The one on the right is more for students who might be younger or need picture cues rather than words. And again, it just categorizes work as green, yellow, or red. That's also a class-wide strategy that you can use where students can understand what they're good at, what they're not, and you can even pair up peers if it's red work for one peer and green work for another, maybe the one for whom that's easy can be a peer tutor for the other student. It creates a climate where it's okay to struggle with stuff. We all have strengths and we all have things we need help with. Task initiation and completion is just starting and finishing tasks without procrastinating, getting started and getting them done when they're due, right? So the things you'll see when your child or family member or student has trouble in this area, um, like we talked about the overlap, these are also individuals that might have trouble stopping a task and starting something new. The outward behavior looks a lot like procrastination. They might complain when they're asked to do, especially a non-preferred activity. Um, they might be off task quite a bit, not paying attention to what they've been assigned, and needing frequent reminders to get to work. Um, so again, an overlap, if you have somebody with short-term memory issues, they may not remember the steps you gave them. And so they're not getting started because they don't remember how to get started. So again, we're going to plug for the visuals because they can look at those and get the information they need. So timers are great. A lot of times, especially visual ones, kind of help them start to recognize the passage of time and get better at it. Explicit directions need to be visual. Um, you can put visual cues on desk. You can set a timer that periodically you check in with them and see if they're on task. Teach them how to kind of self-monitor that, giving them brain breaks. A lot of times, if you will give them choices as to how they want to do the work, they become a little bit more invested and motivated to plug through it. Um, so anything from what they want to write with to whether they want to do evens or odds, who they want to work with, whether they want to stand or sit, any of those choices that are all okay with you, give them an opportunity to have some say, and then they're more motivated. Using your peers, like we talked about a while ago, is often a great way, like teaming kids up to get things done. And of course, reinforcement. Some of these things are very non-preferred.
Do you want to eat?
I've had teachers just put tokens or stickies on worksheets every so often. So the student knows if they make it that far on the worksheet, it's time for a reward. So there's all kinds of ways you can do that. And then remembering that some of them are going to need accommodations and modifications for the work to be doable and achievable for them. Emotional regulation. Okay, so we just talked about another area that has to do with kind of keeping yourself together. And this is managing your feelings to achieve goals and complete tasks. So this is kind of like managing your stress, what's going on inside of you. These are kids that can be highly emotional. All their feelings are just big, big feelings. Their moods change quickly. They may be quick to get upset and take a long time to soothe. They may be quick to disagree or argue, strong reactions. And a lot of times they're not so aware of that. There's something called interoception, which is just your ability to read your own internal cues and know that you're starting to come apart. That a lot of times does not happen with these individuals. So we have to use some strategies and supports, again, coming from that incredible 5-point scale that helps them to get in touch with their own internal cues to recognize when they're becoming upset, and what are some of the things they can do to stay all right. So these are 3 different examples of how you can use pictures and words to help them come up with some strategies and learn to recognize that. And in our next EF Lunch and Learn, we're going to talk about behavior and executive functioning. So we'll go into these kinds of strategies a whole lot more for that one. But also something like deep breaths, anything in with regard to mindfulness, something that gets them in the present rather than whatever it is that they're loop taping in their brain. So relaxation strategies, mindfulness strategies, all those can help. And also a place for them to go to cool down. And I'm not talking about time out, but a place they can go to kind of pull it together is always a great idea. So when you have all these things going on inside that you're trying to manage, a lot of times what happens is they spill over, right? And they become external. And that's this one. This is the ability to be able to control your emotions and behavior, stopping yourself before you act out, right? Or respond to an impulse. So this is what you see on the outside of all that stress and anxiety that they're trying to control. So what you might see in these individuals is that they say or do the first thing that comes in their head. So there's no think before you do, it's do and then think. These are your blurters that will blurt out in class. They have difficulty waiting for a reward. If you say, first we're going to do this, then we're going to do that, they want to go right to the reward, and it's very hard for them to wait. It's very hard for them to take turns and wait for their turn in younger kids. Um, they they may need frequent reminders about getting to work, right? Because they're blurting and they're talking and they can't kind of stifle all these things that they're doing. Um, these are also the kids that, because they behave so instinctively without thinking, they're not they're not the kids that anticipate the consequences of that behavior. So when they do act out impulsively and a consequence comes their way, they think it came out of nowhere. They don't understand the connection sometimes between their grades and their actual performance on a test. These are the kids that might say they gave you the grade, not that they earned it. So just that cause effect between their behavior and what the consequence was might be difficult. So we talked about all of these already. So here's one for younger kids. For example, we said turn taking. This is just a way to slide the bead back and forth. This is a nice visual that also gives them something to do. Could help with younger kids and turn taking. That we also use something like a talking stick, and that's just when a question is asked, and this could be a visual even for an older student. A question is asked, you're supposed to think, then raise your hand, and then share your answer. So it's a visual that reminds them to take a minute. Don't say the first thing that comes in your head, right? Give yourself a chance to think. And those can be made for little kids and are still appropriate reminders for older students. So time management and planning. If you're not sure what you're good at and what your weaknesses are, it's going to be very hard for you to make a plan that meets your needs. So time management and planning can be really, really difficult for them. So they're going to lose track of time, seems unaware, they're late for appointments, their goals might be unrealistic. They don't have an idea of just really how long certain things take. So they might wait till the last minute, miss deadlines. And so these are some of the strategies you can use for them to help them with time management. Again, timers are good. You can create visuals where you move an icon to show them the passage of time, making time more concrete for them. If they have a plan to This is just a visual that shows how long does it really take, that you can sit with a student, ask them, how long do you think it's going to take? You write that down. They go through whatever the task is, and then you see how long it really took to try to teach them how to actively gauge how quickly or how long something takes to do. So any kind of calendar for them is going to help them. It can be simple things like writing down the steps in something, letting them know how they're progressing in time to finish things. And again, there's all kinds of digital tools that for older students and even for some younger students that are great for them to learn to use. Um, so those are all of the skills. You will be able to pull this up to look more closely at a few of the strategies that I had pictures of. Our next Lunch and Learn, as I said a while ago, we're going to go more into taking like two or three of the areas and looking at how it impacts behavior and giving you more detailed strategies for just those. And that's going to be on March 13th at noon. So I hope I gave you something to think about when you have someone in your life that is exhibiting these difficulties and giving you some idea of some things you can do to support them in developing some of these skills. Thanks again for being with us today, and we hope to see you again on March 13th. I do have a QR code for you to please click on and tell us what you thought of today's Lunch and Learn, because we do like to continue to make changes based on your feedback.